to the Mel Brown Crafting Podcast. This is episode 34. This is my fortnightly vlog about knitting, crochet, yarn dyeing, spinning, weaving, anything else that seems like a good idea at the time. I'm coming to you from North Yorkshire in the north of England, where I live with my husband, our 3 daughters and 3 cats. You can find me on social media. On Instagram I'm Mel Brown Crafting Podcast, and also Creative Escape Retreats, which is my teaching business, and on Ravelry I'm funkyforty, and there's also a Ravelry group for this podcast. The show notes are down below. If you are interested in anything I've mentioned, click on the link down below. It'll take you across to the Ravelry group, and there'll be clickable links to all the patterns and the people, things like that. If you don't know how to use Ravelry, then I'm doing a course in Harrogate on, I don't know, in a couple of weeks on using Ravelry. But anyway, hello, how's it going? I'm recording on my laptop now, hoping that I can do it all in one take. That'll be exciting. But we do have children here, so that probably won't work. But, you know, I'll give it a go. Oh, excuse me. Right, so let's start with where are they now? What's happened to the projects that you've already seen? So there's my old friend Memories blanket, which of course is still ongoing, but I wanted to show you it because I do you know the ripple scarf, Tunisian ripple scarf I've been doing for quite a while? That's in Easy Knits Hulk Smash colourway. I finished that, and I will show you that later on, but I actually managed to save a tiny little bit of it from the end, and it's made its way into my blanket. It wasn't enough for a square, so I've had to supplement, but it's there. And it made me realise that this is a bit like a photo album. I'm not sure if I've said this before, but the memory blanket's a bit like a photo album. It kind of reminds you, when you flick through a photo album, think, oh yeah, I remember that day, or yeah, that was great, I really enjoyed being with that person, or being at that place, or whatever. And it's like that when I look at this, I just think, oh yeah, I remember that. That was the Echo Chamber mystery crochet along. It was the first one I ever did, and in fact there's some exciting news about that. But just looking at the blanket, it's like looking at a photo album. It's absolutely awesome. If you haven't done one, I'd highly recommend it. So that's oh, there's a cat approaching. That's a come on then. Did you hear that? She shouts a lot, this one. Meow. She's now decided to attack my spinning wheel. Yes, that's the first one. It's a long-term work in progress. Next, the Tunisian ripple scarf. Now, this is the Hulk Smash colourway from Easy Knits, and it's finished. And Andrea has blocked it for me. She's so lovely. So there it is. Let's bring it up close. Isn't it lovely the way the yarn has pooled, the colours have pooled? It's just amazing, and it's a really nice length. It's one full skein of 4-ply, so you can wear it in the kind of old-fashioned way like that, or in the more 21st century way of through like that. Either way, it looks, actually I think that looks brilliant. I love it. I really love it. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's quite a repetitive pattern because it's one row, but that's kind of its charm, really. Once you know what you're doing, you can just crack on with it and just keep going back and forth. If you know anything about Tunisian crochet, you'll know you do each row twice, so you work your way across and you work your way back. So you can see that I did that same row quite a lot of times. So it's a long project, it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's absolutely lovely, and it's about 400 meters because it's a standard 4-ply ball, and yeah, it's lovely. So we're doing a course on this in October at Yarn Etc. in Harrogate. So yeah, you'll take your ball of yarn, we'll provide the pattern. I can't remember if it's a paid for pattern or not, but either way we will provide the pattern. And then you just choose a ball of sock yarn, or we might be able to do it in double knit as well. I'm going to start one in double knit fairly soon. So that's all finished, very happy with it. Didn't show you the ball band, did I? But you've seen that quite a lot of times. You better see it in the last episode. So that's great. Really, really like it. That's going to go to Yarn Etc. now. It's going to hang out there for a little while while we're promoting that course, and then I'll get it back in October, I would think. So I might just wear it for now. Okay, the next work in progress that you've seen before is Less is More. So this is an Amy King pattern. It's designed for handspun, and I don't think I've actually made much progress. Have I? I can't remember what I showed you last time. So it's a cardigan. There's the back, and it's all hand spun, mostly by me. By my friend Sarah, spun this and this. I dyed this as well as spun it, and this and this. So it's a wonderful kind of mixture. Now the sleeves is what I was working on, and I dyed and spun this, and then this I'd already spun. So we're now here, and it's at my elbow. So it's quite a way to go yet, and I'm not really looking to decrease much because I want them to be fairly loose, that I can wear them over the top of any kind of long sleeved top. So what I've done next, and I'll come to that in a minute when I come to dyeing and spinning, is I got some undyed fibre and I have dyed it to pick up some of these colours. So you can see there's a light pink here, to pick up that and the dark purple. And when the yarn that I have dyed for that is done, I'm hoping to dye another one. It's going to be similar to that. It's going to be the pinks and then the reds. So the sleeves will end on a pinky red, which will kind of match the red at the bottom of the body. That's the plan. But what I'm actually doing is I'm recording a project diary of this, and it's quite a long video. It's going to be quite fun. It's going to be a standalone video, sort of me making the decisions, how I think it's going to work out, like watching me do it, and then like, that wasn't as I planned, or look how that worked out. Well, it's really interesting actually. I'm really enjoying doing it. I'll let you know when that's ready to go. So that's what's happening at the moment. The interesting thing with this is the red and the blue on the one sleeve, there's stripes of red and then stripes of blue, and on the other sleeve it became much more chaotic because it was the other end of the ball. And yeah, this is the same section, much more chaotic. It's really interesting. I'm going to make sure I don't lose any stitches there. Right, so that's Less is More, Amy King, really enjoying it, and it's just so much fun to do. Nice long-term project, but it's involving lots of crafts, you know, not just the knitting but the spinning and the dyeing as well, so it's really good fun. Okay, next, A Hotel of Bees, Christina Hadderingh. Yeah. This is one I've already done before, and I started a second one because I got some yarn in a giveaway, a swap last winter, and it's the same yarn, and it just looked like the right sort of quantities. So where do you think that is? Is it around here somewhere? Oh, there it is. Okay, so I finished that as well, and Andrea's blocked it. She's been very busy on my behalf, as Andrea. So let me just work out which way around it is so you see the bee's wings. There we go. So the right and the wrong side aren't much different. It's just this section that's different because you've got bee's wings that are just on this side. So it's fine, it looks lovely on the other side, but you just don't see the bee's wings. So you've got the bee's wings here, you've got little honeycomb, you've got little bees here, so cute. And then some bigger honeycomb, and then it kind of starts again, the bee's wings. And I didn't have enough of, it's not as changeable of colours in the pattern, and the first one I did wasn't either, but I just kind of, I didn't have enough of one colour to do the 2.2 skeins that I'd done with the first, so I just kind of made it up as I went along. And there it is. This is the buzz along, so we were doing a make along together. Anybody who wanted to do the Hotel of Bees or any other bee related or spring related or flower related or flying insect related or whatever projects, so there's a thread for that. I'll link to that. Sarah was also doing the Hotel of Bees, and she finished it before me, and she said, oh, you know, I don't know what to do with the border. And I thought, oh, the border, I'd completely forgotten about the border. So it hasn't got a border, and now it's been blocked, and you know what, I just can't be bothered. I think it looks fine. It's going to go, it would have gone along this edge here, so you can see it's a little bit ragged and it would have tidied it up. But actually, I'm fine with it as it is. So I'm not going to bother with the border. That's how lazy I am. But it's not for me. I can't. I wouldn't wear a second one. My first one is the yellow, some cream, and this darker tealy colour. It's absolutely lovely. You'll have seen me wearing it before, but I don't, I'm not going to have a second. So it's cotton and acrylic. So I thought I might give it to, well, I don't know. We'll see. But it's going to go in the present box for now. And I do have an idea of who I want to give it to, but we'll see. So that's the Hotel of Bees. If you are still interested in starting for the Buzz Along, please do. There's no time limits. It's all just fun. So start something, have a look at the threads, tell us what you're doing. But that's mine finished. Right. Also, I had finished the Fable Cowl last time, but it was with Andrea blocking, so you didn't get to see it. So here it is now. So the offset of the leaves is not right. The pattern has been condensed for a magazine, and I just couldn't work it out. And I'm pretty confident I've got that wrong. But it's not a biggie. It looks fine. It looks lovely. The problem is the actual design of it. It's meant to go. I'll put in a picture of how you're meant to wear it here. And so it's beautiful and it's very visually appealing, but to be honest, I let that distract me from the fact of, is it actually wearable? It goes over the shoulders, so you wouldn't wear it with a coat. You'd only wear it kind of spring or autumn when it's a little bit chilly, but you don't need a coat. And it's stiff up here. It's not a particularly wearable item in my opinion. And it wasn't wide enough for my shoulders, so Andrea's blocked it to make it as wide as she can. It's still not wide enough for my shoulders, and now it's just not as stiff as it was. So you've got this flopping thing, so you don't even get to see the pattern. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I mean, it sort of kind of sits like that as a great big cowl, but it doesn't do the job. If I'm wearing a cowl, I want it to be to keep my neck warm. It's not going to do that. And if it's doing anything at all practical, it's not going to be showing the pattern. So it's a bit of a white elephant for me, as we say. I'm seeing my sister-in-law, who's got a much smaller frame than me, in next month. So I'm going to see if it fits her, and if it does and she likes it, then it'll become hers. If not, then what I'll do is I'll see if I can get a cushion pad that it fits, but although it's not square, so that's unlikely. But I could actually just put some extra, rows of crochet along the top and the bottom, or else I could just sew up the bottom and make it into a bag, or crochet a round bottom for it, make it a flat bottomed big bag. So I'll do something like that with it, either one or the other. But I don't think I'm going to be teaching a course on it because I just don't think it's wearable. It hasn't got that kind of broad appeal, which is a shame. So that is all of the projects that you've already seen. Now I have been crafting like a demon. Excuse me a sec. Oh. And I've got lots of finished objects. So let's go with, oh yes, and new projects as well. Let's go with the first thing on the list, which is the slip stitch skews. Now, if you've watched before, you'll know that I absolutely love the pattern Skew, which is a sock pattern by Lana Holden, and it is an amazing pattern. And I've made, I don't know, certainly more than 10 pairs using that pattern, and I just love it so much. It's the only sock pattern I would knit one at a time, because as soon as I finish the first one, I can't wait to start the second. But what I wanted to do was try and combine it with my current favourite thing, which is a slip stitch pattern. So do you remember the geek socks that I made? They were with an extended, I'm looking for my sock locker. They were with an extended slip stitch where you slip for 2 rows, you do slip stitches with it when the colour changes on a colour change yarn. Well, what I wanted to do was combine a simpler version of that, where you just slip every 4th stitch when you change colours on a colour changing yarn. So I wanted to try and combine that with the Skew. two of my favourite things, but also combined with a third favourite thing, which is Clare Nettleship yarns. So this is a lady who's local to me. She lives in Yorkshire, and this is her standard sock, and she does something which I haven't really seen before. When she does striping, self-striping, which isn't really her main thing, she says how many rows you're likely to get given this number of stitches and this size needle, which is really, really useful. And she thinks she still does, but she certainly used to have 3 different thicknesses. So you can think, okay, how many stitches am I going to have? What am I looking to achieve? And then you can choose, which is just brilliant. It really is. And the colour she chooses are so fantastic. So at the retreat in April, I bought, I had a custom colourway made, which we called So Stripy, because it is stripy, and as Linda is always going on at me, I'm always saying so on this podcast. So we called it So Stripy, the colourway. And I made the geek socks out of them, but I wanted to make a second pair, which I've done. And I'll show you those in a minute. But I also broke my yarn ban. The only yarn I've bought this year, for me personally, is 2 skeins of Clare Nettleship yarns. And the first one is High Hopes, which is her first ever colourway when she started her business, which makes it really important to me. So all of that nattering leads me to this. So it's blocked. A little hole there. There is a hole in there. Yeah, that's fine. It's not much. And yeah, it's such a beautiful pattern. And I'll show it from the other view as well, because that's nice. So the first one is done. That's the front of the foot. So you can see the stripes go skewed up your foot. So it's absolutely brilliant. I love it. One thing that was a bit strange though, and this is me losing my marbles, you slip a stitch the first row of the new colour, and then when you get to the second row you just knit it, and that makes it taller and makes it seem to jump into the next colour. So that's what makes these little bubbly bits, which I love. Now when it came to the top, here you need to do short rows, so it's short rows back and forth, knit and purl. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can't do the slip stitch when it's back and forth purl, because the slip will appear on the wrong side. So when I started the short row, I stopped slipping stitches, and of course you get this, which, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it doesn't look ideal. And then as I was explaining it to my husband, I thought, is that true? Is it true that I can't slip the stitch because it's on? And I tried to think it through, and my baffled brain couldn't work it out. The poor man, you know, he has to listen to all manner of dross from me. So I wasn't sure it was true. So when I started the second one, I thought, I'm going to find out. So then I'm at knit group yesterday talking to my friend Elaine about it, and she said, no, I think it will work. And I said, well, I'm not sure. And she said, we decided to have a bet on it, £1, just for fun. So I could have proven it right there and then by just going back, but no, I'm going to wait. So the second one is well on the way. Let me have a look. So there it is. So when I get to the top, I will try and do the slip stitch and see if it works. And so I'll either get a sock where it works and it looks great, or else I'll win £1, which is, you know, fun. The funny thing is, though, of course, if it does work, then I'm going to have socks that don't match. But, you know, that's no big deal for me. So that's where I'm at with that. I've got plenty of yarn left. It's so beautiful. And actually I'm doing a slight variation on this for my last retreat colourway, but I won't tell you anything about that just yet. It's a secret. So that's the slip skews, and it's well underway already. I definitely have that finished by the time I speak to you again. I just can't put skew down. Oh, if I haven't already convinced you, it is a wonderful pattern. So much fun to knit, and so beautiful to wear. Fits really, really, really well. Right, okay, so that was a new whip on the block, and that's whip number 3. So we have the Memories blanket, Less is More, and the slipped stitch skews. Next, the Boomerang for hookers. So you remember the oh thought it was the one around. The boomerang that I knitted, it was designed for hand spun, and I knitted one for me, and then one for Andrea, and then one for my youngest daughter Belle with the yarn that she'd dyed and spun herself. Well, I fancied looking for more patterns that were designed for hand spun, and I came across this. It's Boomerang for hookers. It's basically the same shape, a boomerang shape, but it's a crochet pattern. Now, do you remember me talking about the Dark Water song by the Young'uns that I was inspired by, and I'd dyed and spun a colourway that I called Dark Water, and then I got all those singles with the same kind of colour, and I spun some undyed and plied that. So the colour that was Dark Water on its own, I then spun it and plied it with some plain, some undyed, and I made that light water. And I said I was going to do some with some black and make it muddy water and make a fade effect. Well, I hadn't got around to doing the third colour, but I thought I'd get started with the boomerang anyway, as to kind of inspire me. So I did with the light water, and then went on to the dark water, and then actually I spun some sort of dark purple, some dark purple, and I spun that with what was left of the bluish singles to make, I think I gave it a name. It's not muddy because it's purple. Aubergine water, yeah, because that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Aubergine water. And I didn't actually spin that until I'd already crocheted in the other two colourways, because it was such a quick pattern. So it's basically finished. It was finished in no time at all, and here it is. So you start up here, and here's the light water, and I did the whole of light water in the first evening, so it's 2 hours, 3 hours of crochet, and then I brought in the dark water the next day, which is this bit here, and then I spun and plied the aubergine water, which is this last bit on the end, and by then it was actually long enough. So what's the fibre for this? I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it's very sheepy. Actually, it's becoming less so as I hand it around. I took it to knit group yesterday. So I took it to see Andrea yesterday and said, do you think we should block it? And she said, when I say we, I mean her. Do you think it should be blocked? And she said, no, I don't think it will add anything to it. So we're leaving it as it is. So basically, it was less than 3 days of knitting, crochet, and it is superb. Obviously, I've got it on top of another one, but it's squishy, and it's just a nice size, and it's just like the other boomerang that you just basically keep crocheting until it's big enough. So ideal for hand spun. It's snuggly as anything. Oh my goodness, it's so lovely. Wonderful pattern, really easy to memorize. Really, really pleased with it. These two boomerang patterns have been amazing for me. So that's all done. I would highly recommend giving that a go, particularly if you've got hand spun. I'm going to say it's about 200 and I don't know. I'll weigh it and I'll put it up here. So it's any gauge. It doesn't matter what you've spun. Just choose a hook that's just the right size for it, or a little bit bigger if you want it nice and open, and to make allowances for the bits where it is a bit thicker, and just get going on it. And of course you can change hook in the middle if you want. If the next skein you go on to is a bit thicker, you could go up a hook size, or go down a hook size. It doesn't matter. It's just one of those things where, oh, I don't know, I love it. I really, really love it. And things designed for hand spun seem to just, I don't know. I was trying to find some other patterns, and I did find, I thought in the end, my hand spun 2-ply is usually about somewhere between a double knit and a chunky weight. And I had not much more luck looking for hand spun crochet patterns. So I did find a pattern that's a jumper, but it's chunky weight. So I'm going to come back to that. But yeah, patterns that are designed specifically for hand spun. Wonderful. Okay, so that's a finished object. Now, I was wittering on earlier on about the So Stripy colourway of Claire Nettleship's yarns, and I wanted to make a second pair of socks. I only used 55 grams in the first pair, and I wanted to make a second pair. So Nick group I was chatting, and Amy suggested Speckled Space, and there it is. Shall I show you the one without the marker? So here it is. So this was a bit funny because I've had loads of pairs of 2.75mm needles because I use them for socks. I used to have 3-4 pairs of socks on at the time, at a time, and I was always using 2.75mm. But a lot of them have got a bit knackered, and some of them are broken, and and they've got a lot of use over the last 5 years. And I have been loving the Zings. I love colour, and Zings is Knit Pro. If you haven't seen them, a Knit Pro product, but the shaft of the needle is metal, but it's coated with a coloured whatnot, so they're coloured needles. I love them, and a different colour for each size. I've got the interchangeables, the Knit Pro interchangeables, and I have attached Zing shafts to them and absolutely love them. So I've been toying with the idea of, for my birthday or for Christmas, getting a whole set of the Zings. But because I was trying to start a second pair of socks and I didn't really have another pair of 2.75mm 60cm needles, or 2 pairs I should say, because that's how I knit them, as you can see, I decided to order some Zings, and it's fixed, not interchangeable. So for those of you who are not familiar, you can just screw them on here if they're interchangeable, and if they're fixed, they're all attached like that. So I ordered 2 pairs, and they came, and I was so disappointed with them. So the join here is appalling. The metal is crimped at this point, and that seems to make the transition between the plastic cable and the metal really difficult. And I just did a couple rounds with them, and I was spending a minute each time pushing the stitches onto the needle. So here, I mean, it's not perfect by any means, but I can just twiddle a little bit and get them all on. And I've got 2 sets to get on. There we go, they're on. 5 seconds. It was taking me about a minute, and it was just pulling at the yarn, so it was just weakening the yarn and making it. I was so disappointed. And it's good that I found out, because then I didn't order a full set of fixed. I might yet order a full set of the interchangeable, just the shafts, because I've already got lots of the cables, and I can order more cables. They're fine. The cables are actually fine, the interchangeable ones. It's just these fixed ones were really, really poor, and I'm very disappointed. So I dug out some higher sharps that I bought for myself for Christmas year before last, and I started working with them. But the problem is, this is not splitty yarn at all, but what you're doing is, with each of these, is you're just doing effectively a cable, a 1-stitch cable. So I'm doing it without a cable needle. I'm going into the 2nd stitch from the front, pulling them both off, and picking up the 1st stitch with that needle. So I'm just doing a 1-stitch cable without a needle, and the sharps were splitting the stitch all the time. And you're also doing it's a paid for pattern. There's other stitches where you're pulling a stitch over, and the sharps were splitting the stitch. And I was surprised by that, because the pattern itself mentioned that sharp needles would be good because of the pattern, but actually they were too sharp. And the other thing about that is the way that I knit, I push the point of a needle with my finger with every stitch. And with sharp needles, that's a recipe for disaster. If I knit for more than half an hour, I'm going to have a sore finger, and then I'm going to have a hole in my finger, and that has happened before many times. But I didn't want to be doing that. So the sharps weren't working out either. So I picked up my symphonies. So I only have the 1 pair. I don't use them very often, because compared to the chrome ones, the Novo, they're quite sticky. The stitches don't move along back and forth as easily as they do with the metal ones. But actually, they've worked out fine, and it's actually going really well. although I have to say I am having trouble with the cabling back and forth, so that's why I've got the marker here. What I'm doing is I'm actually picking the needle off with that, so it's kind of not quite using it as a cable needle because I'm not knitting off of it. I'm picking that off, holding it, moving the stitch, knitting the stitch, and then pushing it back onto the needle to knit it. So kind of a mixture between cabling with and without a needle, because I've dropped it a couple of times and had to bring it back, and I don't enjoy that. So anyway, there they are. That's the first pattern repeat done, and you can see it's fairly easy. Once you get the hang of it, I should be able to do it without looking at the pattern, which is my ideal. I think one more full pattern repeat and I should be looking at almost ready to turn the heel. So I've used this, which is West Yorkshire Spinner's signature 4-ply for the toe, and I'll do that for the heel, and then I'll keep going with the So Stripey until it runs out. I don't think I'll even save some for my blanket because the stripes are quite big. She did particularly long stripes for me because I wanted to do the geek pattern with it, I think one square is just going to be like colour for one colour for half of it and another colour for the other half. It's not going to look particularly exciting, so I'm not even going to worry about saving some for my blanket. So I'll just knit right till the last drop, and then I'll switch to the West Yorkshire Spinners, of which I have plenty, and I will then just do the switch to the cuff and do a twisted rib. And if that isn't, if the sock isn't long enough at that point, I'll just do a longer rib. I should say I'm not doing the actual full pattern, I'm just using the stitch pattern from it. I'm adding it to my recipe. My recipe is a toe up. I think the pattern's a toe up, 12 stitches on each needle going up to 32, and then I've got the old foot, and then I've got a marking where I, when I try it on, it comes to here. I then start the German short row heel, and then carry on up. So I'm just using my sock recipe but with the stitch pattern. So yeah, so that will use up that. So I had 2 pairs of socks from this wonderful yarn, so making me very happy. And of course that means I've got 2 pairs of socks on the needles with Claire's yarn at the moment. She's definitely my one of my top 2 favourite designers, her and Easy Knits John. So I was thinking, I have got a 3rd skein. I was thinking of casting on another pair, so I've got all through a hat trick of Claire Nettleship yarns, but I haven't got any more needles, and I couldn't think of another pattern I wanted to do anyway, apart from another skew. That is probably what I'll do with it. So yeah, so where am I at? Speckled Space, Sings High High Sharp Symphonies. Yeah, I have got a set of interchangeable acrylic ends as well, shafts, and they are absolutely beautiful. My sister-in-law bought them for me for Christmas a little while ago. They're absolutely beautiful. The colours are so stunning. The problem with them is they're very sticky. So if you've got the sort of chrome at one end is really slippery, and then you've got the wood in the middle, and then you've got the acrylics at the end. And if you're knitting something silky, then they're absolutely brilliant. I have used them and they're great for that because they don't let the stitches slip about too much. But if you're knitting something where you want to move them a lot, they're just too sticky. So I need to get some more silk, don't I, so that I can use them. Right, okay. I think I'm about to be invaded by children. No, maybe not. Okay. What have I not shown you yet? Oh yeah. So I've had in my queue for quite a long time something called Lula. Excuse me. It's one downside of doing one take. I don't keep stopping and having a slug of my drink. So Lula. It's a crochet project designed for a cake, gradient cake, something like that. I bought a gradient cake at Yarndale. I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before. It was September. And I, when you look at it, you think, you chose that, Mel? It's in my Gemma B Makes bag, which is my Nidderdale bag. It's all the autumn in Nidderdale with a deer on it. And look, this is the cake. It's really not, it's so subtle, isn't it? It's not me at all. I don't know why I chose it. I mean, it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. But it's just not the kind of thing I would usually choose. But it is from these guys. And it is 200 grams. There's 2 skeins knotted together. 80% superwash merino, 20% silk, and it's high twist. So I thought high twist would be pretty good for crochet because then it, you know, it's less likely when you stick your hook in that the yarn will split, and it doesn't split. It's great. As you can see, it was quite expensive, but it is gorgeous. Merino and silk, it is gorgeous. So I bought it with the plan to do Liula, and so I have started it, but I think I'm probably going to give it to my mum-in-law for Christmas. Here it is. So it's a 6-stitch pattern. You can see the kind of leaves, and you can see how it's working. It's one of those intuitive patterns where you can, another repeat or two of the pattern, and I won't need to know what number I'm on. But what I'm doing is I've got these little cards, and that probably wouldn't mean much to you, but that means it's row 2, and that tells me what I'm doing on row 2, because it's written out in the sort of pattern speak so that everybody would understand it, whereas I know exactly what I mean by that, and then I've got all the others clipped there, so I know when I pick it up again I'm on row 2, and that's what I'm going to do. So you can actually, I'm not sure if you'll be able to pick it up, but you can actually already see a very slight change in the colour. Now the previous gradient cake I'd had was a shapious whirl. Now what they do is they've got 4 plies, and they change 1 ply at a time. So there's 4 blue, then there's 4 blue and a white, and 4 blue and 2 whites, or whatever. They do that. So you can actually see the line where it changes, which is fine. Do you remember seeing my, what's it called? The Tunisian exclamation shawl. I'll put Vicky in here. So you can see there where the colour changes. But this is actually a much more gradual change. I can already see a slight change, so it's going to be really good fun to make. And I think, yeah, it'll probably be a present for my mum-in-law, because it's much more her kind of colours, you know, it's subtle. And it's soft as well. She told me years ago that she can't wear wool, and for years I've not been making her anything with wool. And then she asked for something, and we talked about it, and she said, oh, I can wear wool as long as it's not scratchy. I don't buy scratchy wool, so I think she'll be okay with that. So that's where we're at with that. That's going to be a lovely to sort of pick it up and potter away with it, because it's the same 6 rows for 730 meters of yarn. So yeah, really enjoying that. Okay, so that is all my works in progress and my finished objects in knitting and crochet. So let's have a look at spinning and dyeing. So you saw with the less is more that I wanted to get a light pink and a dark purple yarn to bridge the gap between that, and then a kind of pinky red at the end. So I dyed some fibre, split it into 2, and dyed some of it purple, some of it pink, arguably, as my friend Amy would say, blue and red, because that's what I always do. And then I spun it in long chunks, so a long chunk of red, pink, and a long chunk of purple. And then I've got 2 singles. So for those of you who don't spin, you normally spin 1 thread and another thread, and then you apply them together. Now if this one is red and blue, and this one is red and blue, red bit here, blue bit here, blue bit here, they're not going to exactly match, because the spinning process is not exact. So there's going to be a bit of an overlap, and as you get near the end, the overlap's going to be more chaotic, which is what you saw on those sleeves. So these are the 2 colours. This is the aubergine from the Aubergine Waters, and these are the 2 singles. Now these are the same weight. They look different, don't they? And this is something that befuddles me all the time. But anyway, so that's the pink and that's the purple. So they're going to sit next to this, and then go on to something more red and orange, red and pink, something like that. I don't know. I'll make it up as I go along as usual. So those 2 are spun. What you're meant to do is you're meant to spin singles and let them sit for 24 hours before you apply them. Or for once I'm actually doing the recommended thing. I spun the first half 2 nights ago, I spun the second half last night, and then tonight I'll apply the 2 together, soak, thwack, and I'll be ready to start knitting in another couple of days. So excited. So I'll carry on knitting with those. Might be doing a little bit of decreasing on the sleeve, but not too much, because obviously the forearms are a little bit smaller than the upper arm. And then, yeah, so you'll see that again next time. That's the spinning and dyeing. Weaving. Oh, I am so enjoying weaving. I've still got it's my loom. Oh, look at that. Can you see my rectangular loom? haven't done anything more on that. I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish that one off with a bit of fun, and then I'm going to do kind of landscape things on that. So just kind of, not just landscape, just kind of a picture in my head. Let's say, yeah, because a friend of mine had said, was it who, my sister-in-law, I think, had said that it looks like the cliffs in the sea to her, and whatever. So a kind of landscape concept, or just kind of picture. Let me think. It's always the sea with me because I just love the sea. But Nidderdale, the place where I live, is very, very green. Rolling hills and rivers at the bottom, and oh, beautiful. Grey skies usually. And just kind of getting a picture of that in my head, and then weaving that. If you see what I mean. So I'm going to use it for that, but I need to finish that one off first. But the round weaving, oh, I'm having so much fun with it. I did my first introduction to weaving. I think I talked to you about that, didn't I? Yeah, I did. So I've started with these metal rings, and the metal rings, I started using those. The first one that I showed you, the ring is a little bit smaller than the warp threads. So the warp threads come out like this, and the ring stops about here. So I'd wrap the warp threads over the ring and then tie them. That was a really difficult manoeuvre. We could also just cut the warp threads and then tie them round. That's what I would do next time, and then do some kind of wrapping round to cover them up. But my friend Rachel, who also teaches at the retreats, she came along to the first weaving workshop at Yarn Etc., and she made something beautiful, which I've shown you before. But she also went on to use a bigger ring, a ring that was bigger than the warp threads, and she inspired me to do this. So there's the weave in the middle. It's quite symmetrical, but it's obviously all the purples and pinks. These are all leftover yarns. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Probably cut that out, right? So a round weave, and then what I've done is I've got this. This is a metal ring. It's actually a white one, which isn't ideal. I wanted a silver one, but it doesn't really matter because, having said that, I've now exposed all the white. Silly me. What I've done is I've done a crochet UK double all the way around, and then put a UK treble all the way around, and then I've taken this off of the loom, and I have got a thread, and I have wound it through all of the ends of the stitches, and then picked up a warp thread, ends of the stitches, picked up a warp thread, all the way around in what's roughly uniform way. And my second daughter, fell in love with this, so this is going on her wall. So it's just another way that you can display your weaving. So that's the weaving I've been doing. Right, okay, that's pretty much all the things I've been making. I was watching Gemma B Makes podcast. Do you watch it? She lives in Leeds, and she's absolutely great. She does a lot of knitting, crochet, and sewing. She does a lot of sewing. We meet up occasionally. We met through doing podcasts, and she is lovely. Now, I watched her most recent episode of the day, celebrating her first year of podcasting, and it made me so excited because you faithful people who are always watching, do you remember Boxing Day? I started the Echo Chamber Mystery Cowl. I talked about it earlier on. My first ever mystery crochet along, and I absolutely loved it. I didn't think I would want to do a mystery thing because I'm too much of a control freak. I want to know what it looks like before I decide to commit yarn to it, all that yada yada. But I got caught up in the excitement of it, and the crochet project, Joanne's Grace and somebody else. I've made patterns of theirs before, and I just thought, let's give it a go. Oh my goodness, it was so exciting. You got a new clue every week, and I had some beautiful beehive yarn and some fibre space fairy wings, and it was beautiful. I gave it to my second daughter actually. She loved it. So, and the stitches, the crochet stitches they used were so innovative, and the design was amazing. I loved it, but for some reason I've just kind of fallen out of touch with the whole process. So Gemma told us that there's a new mystery crochet along, and it starts tomorrow. It's called Stash of Shells, and I wouldn't have been taking part because, do you remember, I committed to not buying any new yarn for the first half of the year. Now, apart from the Clan Nettleship yarns, and to be honest, you know, you've got to let me off with that one. I was on retreat and they were so beautiful. That's actually, I bought some yarn for the Fable Cowl, but that's work. that was for me to teach. Other than that, the clay nettleship is the only yarn I have bought in these first 6 months, and those first 6 months finish on the 1st of July. But the crochet along starts tomorrow, which is the 21st of June. So I wouldn't have been able to take part, you know, in a timely fashion without breaking my commitment to myself not to buy yarn. But they obviously anticipated this, and they're using leftover sock yarn. How exciting is that? So I've not only, obviously, as you know, I've got my memory blanket, but how much leftover sock yarn have I got? A ton. So there's some which have just got little scraps, but some have got tons and tons and tons. And there's more in my sock yarn stash, sort of 50 grams of this and whatever. So it's perfect, absolutely perfect, and I cannot wait to get the first clue tomorrow. I've got, I'm out for the day with the girls, the big girls, tomorrow, and then we've got my family staying, my brother and his wife staying for the weekend, so it's going to be a bit hectic, but I'm going to get that first clue and get started. Actually, what's happening tomorrow? Do I need to come across it? Yeah, I'll tell you that in a minute. So that's starting tomorrow, and I can't wait to get started. The other thing that Gemma told me about was the Tour de Fleece. I think I might have to just shut that door because the washing machine. Oh my goodness. Okay, the Tour de Fleece. So I've heard of it before, but I wasn't really sure what it was. So it's an event that runs for the whole of the Tour de France, which is the 6th to the 28th of July. And the idea is that you spin every day, and you're in teams, and you total up your meterage of spun singles and yarn, and then there's a competition to see whatever. So obviously we're not going to win anything, me and Gemma and a few other novices, but it's about just kind of focusing on spinning for, let's look, 6th to the 28th is 22. Yeah, it's just a day over 3 weeks. So for 3 weeks, basically, the focus will be spinning. So I decided to take part, to join her team, and I ordered from Fibre Hut, which is a UK warehouse place in the West Country, Worcestershire. I ordered a kilogram of undyed corridor. That's right. So I've got this kilogram of undyed corridor, and what I thought I would do, I found that pattern that I mentioned earlier on, the crochet chunky jumper, and I've estimated the less is more is about 700 grams at the moment. So once I've put in the extra 2 bits of the sleeves, it's probably going to be about 900 grams. So I estimated a kilogram would be definitely enough for a crochet jumper, because of course crochet takes a bit more fabric, a bit more yarn. So I'm going to get this 1 kilogram yarn of mine, and I'll break it into probably 6 or 7 chunks, so over 100 grams each, and dye them in either a gradient or a rainbow, probably a rainbow knowing me, and then spin them and then knit them in this jumper. It's the top down, so knit them in this jumper. I'm going to have the same problem as I've had with the less is more and with the Janelle, in that how do I get the sleeves to be the same colours as we go down, but I don't know, I'll worry about that later, shall I? So I just want to get that spun, so I can either dye it and then spin it, or I can spin it and then dye it, because it's going to be a solid colour, so it won't matter. I think if I spin every day a huge amount of undyed fibre, I'm going to go bonkers, so I probably need to dye at least some of it beforehand. But it'd be interesting to see the difference between dyeing it and spinning it, and spinning it and then dyeing it. I've not actually spun and then dyed before. So that starts on the 6th of July, so quite excited about that. So the Creative Escape stuff. Since I last spoke to you, we did our first mosaic crochet day. So that's the Havana Shawl by Tinna, Thorvaldsdottir. Oh, crikey. Anyway, we did a course on that at Yarn, etc., and it was absolutely brilliant. It really was great. It's such a good pattern. We're doing another one on the 2nd of July, which is still spaces on. So if you're local, do come along. Book rather with Yarn, etc., and come along. And then this week I did an introduction to spinning in Knaresborough, and that was lovely as well. A lovely group of ladies. And we've got an introduction to weaving on the 4th of July. So that's where you get your loom and a needle, and we just have a play for a couple of hours, all the materials provided. So that's what's going on there. On a more personal note, the GCSEs and the A-levels are done. So as of Wednesday, yesterday, I think the last is done. So the two older girls are now on study leave, or now on leave, holiday, until they start back at sixth form for the younger one and at university for the older one in September. So there's a lot of people buzzing in and out, which is why you can hear probably. So tomorrow the big girls and I are going to a spa. So when my eldest turns 16, that you can't go to a spa here until you're 16. So for her 16th birthday, part of her present for her birthday was that we went to the spa together and spent the day there. We had treatments, we went in the jacuzzi, it was lovely. And I had forgotten to arrange that for the second, who turned 16 in the spring. So we've got that tomorrow, our spa day. So it's me and the oldest two. The oldest one I managed to wangle and invite to it as well. So the three of us are spending the day in the spa with massages and whatever. And I'll be spending a bit of time quietly just chilling out and crocheting probably. Gosh, if I've got the pattern by then. Ooh, no, I can't do that at the spa, can I? Don't know. That's tomorrow, and then my brother and sister-in-law are arriving in the evening, so that we've got them and their two sons here for the weekend, so that could be fun. I'm going to teach my sister-in-law to weave. I've got some plans for that, so that's going to be quite exciting. And yeah, the little one, my Aspie, my little one has Asperger's, the same as me, and she's struggling a bit with school, so we're having a few issues with that, but getting through them. Bless her. So at the moment she's the only person going to school. Husband works from home, so he goes to work, but effectively, when she leaves for the bus, he's sat there having a cup of tea in the dining room, so it feels to her like she's the only one going to school, but thankfully she hasn't really cottoned on to that. So but yeah, so okay, my stash buying ban, self-inflicted, finishes on the 1st of July. It's currently the 20th of June, so it's only another less than 2 weeks. But you know what? I'm not in a hurry to run out and buy yarn. I have put a skein of beehive yarns, merino and silk, away. It's so beautiful, it's teal, and I just know it will go with some other skeins that I've got to make a lovely shawl or something. So I've put that away at Yarn Etc, and I'll pick that up on the 1st of July. But I'm not in a hurry. I'm actually really enjoying using what I've already got. So I don't think I'll be going out and buying more yarn. The exception to that will be Yarndale, if I can get to it, because there's rolling roadblocks because of a massive cycling event here on that weekend, and depending on what university my daughter goes to, we may be driving her to university that weekend, so we'll see how that goes. But all things being okay, I will definitely be spending some money there. And then the retreat in November, Claire's coming back with her yarn, so I intend to be buying a lot of silk yarn then. But actually not really that bothered, just really enjoying knitting from stash, and of course spinning, and then knitting and crocheting what I've spun. So okay, right, I think we're all done. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up. It's lovely to know that people are enjoying it. If you want to see some more, click subscribe and the little bell, because that will tell you when a new video comes up. I record and publish every 2 weeks, not exactly the same day, but always within that week. And so if you want to find out about them, be notified, then just click the little bell. If you've been interested in anything I've said, click the link down below, go across to Ravelry and have a look at all the patterns, the people, the websites, the everything. Tell me what you've enjoyed. If you've enjoyed this this episode, just put a little comment down below here. Just tell me what you've enjoyed, what was interesting, was the best part of it for you. I really enjoy getting engagement from you and just finding out who's watching and what's good, what you're enjoying, because if I know what you're enjoying, I can do more of it. And yeah, so if you want to have a chat on Ravelry as well, respond to the thread or just message me there. Get in touch. Okay, happy crafting, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.